Hello, and welcome to Not Very Scary Stories. This episode will have two stories from the internet. Be sure to leave a sub, follow, or whatever you can on whatever platform you're on. Also, be sure to leave a review so people will know to listen in as well. I'd like to thank you guys for the support thus far on all the platforms you can find us on, including YouTube. I'd also like to remind everyone that if you have any scary stories or experiences you'd like to share, email me at notveryscaryent@gmail.com and tell me how you'd like to be credited. I'm Zenith Darksky, and I'll be your host tonight. Enjoy. This first story is A Cold House from Hell, true story, posted by u/Burnt Schmidt on r/Scary Stories. She never believed in it, my wife. Never once acknowledged the existence of the paranormal. Eventually, she broke after 4 months in our first house. Erected sometime in the 40s, the house stood tall in between two neighborhoods, one upper middle class and one on the other side, rows of shadowy, red-bricked Section 8 project apartments. It started almost immediately. Just little kernels of incidents. Footsteps pacing with empty second bedroom upstairs at night. Blasts of cold air with the furnace running in winter without any windows open. Pictures slapped down on their faces far out of anyone's reach. Shadows moving. Plates and pictures flying off of walls. And that dreaded basement. Even she was uncomfortable down there. She'd repeatedly say, "You know, I don't believe in this shit, but something is wrong in that basement," insisting that I keep the cellar door opened and linger in the kitchen while she folded clothes. One evening, I found her sitting in silence on the couch, biting her nails when I got home from work. When I asked her what happened, all she could utter was, "I can't go into that basement ever again, not unless you're down there." She didn't tell me exactly what happened. She was too afraid to, but that night she begged for me to lay in bed with her until she fell asleep. This went on for a month. I know that when I was in the basement, I'd hear things, creaking pipes, perhaps. They were overexposed everywhere. It was an old, rustic house, but I couldn't stop myself from looking over both shoulders compulsively. I was being watched, I'm certain of it. Finally, it was I who took over the laundry, but like Jacqueline, not unless she was present in the kitchen with the door opened. That was until it slammed shut one night when we went out for a smoke. I persisted that she'd done it to scare me, but her wide-eyed look of unease when I confronted her with it told me all I needed to know without a word spoken. But this story isn't a reiteration of some paranormal inventory of occurrences over the course of a year. It's about one instance and one only. I worked the evening shift of my job. She worked mornings. She was usually up and gone before the sun came up. Somehow, only for unprovable reasons I suspect, I turned into a sudden insomniac, living at 122 West Street. Spurred on by seemingly nothing, I just couldn't sleep. Despite the house being quiet as the dead. Even when I would, the dreams were just abhorrent and disgusting. Images my sane, lucid brain couldn't concoct, despite watching almost every horror film in existence. At first, I blamed it on my new prescription sleeping pills. It was a morning in mid-December. I took my pills and was knocked dead within 20 minutes. When I awoke, the sun was up. I think it might have been a Friday. A 3-day weekend, perhaps. My eyes fluttered as I came out of my somnolent state, and I felt Jacqueline's body snug against mine, under the covers. Because I was so dazed, I only gathered sporadic peripheral glances in her direction. But one thing I noticed for sure was that she was awake. I could see her propped up on her elbow, lying next to me, staring in my direction. I could hear her labored breathing, which I found odd. The pulling of the covers. I made an offhanded comment for her to roll over and go back to sleep. The clock said 7:36. I shut my eyes just for a bit and drifted off. When I awoke once more, a bit more lucid than previously, I felt her hot breath in my ear. I glanced back over at the clock to my right with half-opened eyes. It was 8:42. I continued to face the opposite direction toward the door and tugged at the covers she so tightly had ensconced herself in. "Please give me some covers, babe. I'm freezing." I clearly remember those exact words leaving my mouth. I recall rubbing my ear, the one she'd been breathing in. Felt like frostbite. What happened next had me momentarily questioning my sanity before my vexation finally shook me to consciousness. I felt her hand running sluggishly down my arm before disappearing under the covers. Then a gentle poking, kind of like a "wake the hell up" tapping. The covers had slowly slid off me in the other direction as I pleaded with her, and then I woke up. "You really something else this morning." The covers were off the bed, lying on her side of the floor. I could still smell her Dior in the air and tangled with her spray deodorant. And then I turned. Jacqueline wasn't next to me, but how? I just saw her propped up, leering at me out of the corner of my eye. She must have just gotten out of bed. It was way past her waking time, and she must have been late. I could hear footsteps rushing down the staircase and then back up. And that's when the door to her makeup room, the other bedroom, shut. But it didn't slam. It was gentle. Deliberately placid. Almost sneakily creeping around on my floor, with some deliberate intent. This I didn't know, but could only feel. It was palpable. I got up and went downstairs. The faucet dripped tiny droplets, almost echoing in its cacophonous tenacity. Because that sound, that dreaded, foreboding drip, 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 rang against a backdrop of absolute silence. The volume of the cars whirring by, turning agonizingly quiet. I understood that whatever was in the house was fraying my nerves with some cosmic purpose that only evil understood. I texted her and told her to please leave me be when I'm sleeping. She texted me back very simply, following with a question mark. Later, when she got home, I said, "Running late this morning?" She looked confused. "Actually, I left early. I couldn't sleep. I literally sat in the freezing parking lot until Carol showed up. 15 damn minutes late of all days. You're messing with me." "About what?" "This morning, in the bed, I saw you." The blood drained from her face. "No, honey. I was out the door by 6:30. She proved it by showing me a receipt from Starbucks. Checked out at 6:40. And then she froze. And I froze. Acknowledgement in silence. Then she spoke. "Did it feel cold? Like, really cold?" "Why?" "Did it feel like I was touching you? Prodding?" I wiped my hands over my face. "Fucking Christ," I muttered. She said one last thing. Our recognition of the situation finally on an even keel, despite it not being a direct confession. "From now on, neither of us can be in this house alone." And we weren't. That night, we laid in bed feverishly searching Google for rental listings. Moved out the following August. I don't know what's become of that cold house from hell today, but 6 months after moving out, Jacqueline saw and spoke to one of our neighbors from West Street. She asked if we'd found a better place. Better because following the response of, yes, we're happy even where we are, the neighbor was prompted to divulge one last piece of information. In 11 years, nobody has ever lived in that house for more than a year. This next story is titled They Weren't Children by user/DarkHeroXX, who has had a few stories in our series so far, posted on r/short scary stories. It was nearing 11 p.m. and the sounds of trick-or-treaters had finally faded away. My energy, much like the candy I had, was spent. I let out a yawn as I turned off the television, ready for my head to crash onto my pillow and fall asleep. That was when I heard a knock from my front door. It's so late now, surely there couldn't be any more kids out now. As I walked down the hallway towards the front door, my feet stopped halfway and suddenly I froze. I didn't know what came over me, but I couldn't move an inch closer towards the door. I was overcome with some kind of primal fear as the knocking persisted. Each pound on the door made me wince, my heart nearly skipping a beat in turn. What in the actual hell had come over me? I heard a young boy's voice call out from outside. "Hello, sir. My sister and I are lost. May we please come in?" But the way this kid said that just didn't sound right. It sounded so distorted, as if it was a bad recording of a child's voice. That's when another voice came, this time a young girl's. "Please, sir, we just need to use your phone." Same thing. The voice sounded so inhuman. I thought for a moment that I must have freaked myself out over some of the horror movies I saw. I wiped some of the cold sweat away from my brow. It was only children that needed help, that's all. I forced myself forward. My feet resisted at first, but I was able to finally make it to the door. "Hold on just a minute," I called out. I was sure that I'd left the front porch lights on, but when I looked through the peephole, all I could see was darkness. Couldn't even see the street lights, let alone my neighbor's house across the road, just black. The boy called out again. "Hello, sir. My sister and I are lost. May we please come in?" Sounded just like how he asked earlier. I slowly unlocked the door and opened it. Standing before me were two kids, a boy and a girl, both maybe younger than 12. They both wore jeans and red hoodies, and when they lifted their heads for a moment, they looked normal. Until I looked into their eyes. My heart sank as I saw black voids fill their sockets, a pure Vanta black. I slammed the door and I locked it. All I could hear was, "John! John, let us in!" They both yelled with distorted children's voices. The door shook as they beat upon it, and the lights in my home flickered. Their yells turned into high-pitched ringing. I thought I was going to go deaf. Then, silence. Absolute silence. I sat there until the fear finally dissipated. I looked through the peephole, and sure enough, the lights were on, and the children, those things, were gone.